Hey there. Good evening to you too. I recognize that handle. I've seen plenty of your comments. Learning fast, very informative. Probably know way more than me when it comes to the infrastructure and things like that. But thanks for joining. Yeah, I just wanted to. Well, one, this is my second time trying this, so it's always fun trying something new. But yeah, just noticed, checked in with the Toyota Mirai sales numbers, the figures for November, and the Toyota Mirai in the U.S. has sold 89 in November, which is the highest since 2022, which is saying something. And before that, it was 2020. So, um, yeah, did not expect it to go up this high. So it's been really interesting. I'm really curious what. Well, one, I did see a lot of marketing campaigns, but I don't think that is the only thing. But is this a tell of it going down in the near future? Like this is the kind of last hurrah, if you will, or is it? Yeah. So current incentives, from my understanding, it's actually, let's just look it up. I believe it was 22,000 off the XLE still for the Toyota cash. But as I'm looking that up, sales figures for November were 89 units sold. The previous October was 29, September 30, August 45, July 26, 20. So generally it hovered around the 30 units a month mark, give or take. This is stark contrast from the previous year, 2023. If you compare the summer months, which are typically the hottest car sale seasons, summer and the holidays. In 2023, we saw 406 units in May, 445 in June, 463, and in contrast, this year was 18, 20, and 26. So it's quite a big contrast. However, last year was one of the highest numbers, or was the highest numbers sold in the summer. But previous to that, it was around the 200s. So still a far away from, I guess, typical sales numbers. But let's see here. Mirai deals. Yeah, it is really low this year. I think. Oh wow, I just found a 404 on the Toyota website. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a handful of factors that can be pointed at. Outside of the infrastructure, I mean, the vehicle's age, it's old. What is it now? This generation was, if I'm not mistaken, I think was it 2020 when it came out? This generation? Let me look it up. This new body style. Let's see. The second generation Mirai. So the ones you see on the road today, 2019. If anyone knows, please put it in the chat. Thank you all for joining. And God, I still love that blue with the turbine wheels. Still looks fabulous. Yeah, I believe it was 2021 as well. Why am I having such a hard time finding it? But yeah, but anyway, regardless, it's still, the vehicle is starting to age. Not in terms of looks, just pure, I guess, life, or I guess typical lifespan of a vehicle in this competitive market. It's still a Toyota, which it still holds, but I think the X factor is obviously is hydrogen. But for those of you just joining in, the sales numbers month over month from October to November is 206% growth. I just wanted to see what everyone thought. What with the sales numbers, does this mean is this kind of the last hurrah for sales for this generation of Mirai. With the current incentives, they're pretty darn aggressive, and I'd be shocked if Toyota were to um, increase those incentives significantly more. But we have seen roughly about 30 units sold, give or take, starting in April of this year up until now. Of course, there's some fluctuation, and the deltas are a little bit different. But generally speaking, I would say the average seems to be about 30 units up until this past month in November, being 89. So I think that does say some story. Life of the car, obviously the infrastructure. Um, I know inventory. I'm sure, given these sales numbers, I would imagine are pretty high, and just dealerships are wanting to get them out. Um, let's see. Where are you seeing November sales number? Sure, I can put that in the chat. This is a third party, but I've spot checked this a couple of times, and it does seem to be somewhat accurate. Yeah, they do them quarterly in terms of their like official numbers, but I think from the ones these metrics seem to be pretty close. So I've been running with these. But for those of you that just joined, I put them in the chat, the sales numbers. Just looking at Google Trends, I was curious on what the Toyota Mirai trend line looks like. If you look over the past 5 years, it is one of the lowest it's been since at least December 21, and kind of the start or end of the pandemic, which is saying something. I think, yeah, I mean, the car is still relevant. Actually, maybe not. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit, but the trend line does seem to be consistent with a slightly steeper trend downwards starting in September compared to the previous years. And Toyota did somewhat, I don't know if I'm sure most of you have seen this already, but Toyota has kind of showcased, what was it, the prototype, the Toyota Corolla Cross Hydrogen, with kind of direct high pressure hydrogen direct injection engine. I'm pretty sure this is part of um, their program that they were developing with the Toyota GR Corolla, where they're trying to get a combustion hydrogen engine. But they really highlighted their kind of development in battery technology and how that can pair with hydrogen. So it seems like they're going down that path, unsurprisingly. Um, Tim asks, "What do you think of hydrogen internal combustion engines?" Oh yeah, so I'm probably learning fast. You could probably answer this way better than I can, but I think there are a lot of big problems to solve. I think the most obvious one is that hydrogen is extremely tiny, and one of the was, if I'm not mistaken, the smallest. Yeah, it can escape easily, and then especially, I don't know if the tolerances in an engine long term can sustain um, the efficiency required, or like can output the and efficiency reliably over time. So I think as of now, infrastructure aside, I don't know enough to really have a strong stance on it. But my kind of knuckle dragger brain is thinking it's probably not a good idea. But again, there's people way smarter than I, obviously, that are working hard to solve that problem. So um, we'll see. So to answer your question directly, no idea. All right. I guess I think that is there. I don't know. Okay. So Learning Fast mentions that those numbers might be off enough to not use them. Um, yeah, that's fair. If you do have a link to um, the sources that you use, Learning Fast, feel free to share it in the chat. I'm actually curious too. But anecdotally, just looking at the lots for the Toyota dealerships near me, Toyota of Orange, Tustin, and there's one more. I do go to Longo sometimes, but the lots are still pretty full with Mirai. So um, probably not that great regardless, at least around here. Tim says, I'm driving my Forerunner on hydrogen. Oh, okay. I assume you're joking, but for anyone who drives a Mirai or Nexo, yes. Hopefully not. We don't have balls of steel because that weigh the car down and it would cost us a lot of money per mile. Just kidding. That was a bad joke. Learning fast. Think about the fact that gasoline is like hydrogen is a gas. Yes, that's true. Um, to get power to get the power you want, you would need liquid hydrogen, which isn't practical to store it in a passive. Yeah. I don't know enough, but I from what I understand, being able by to get hydrogen to a liquid state takes a lot of energy, and to keep it there is another problem too. So even if you can maintain that, it'd be pretty tough. Anyway, yeah, but everyone else that's joining, mainly talking about Toyota Mirai sales numbers. What have you been seeing? I'm curious what everyone's been seeing at the dealerships. If you do have a Toyota Mirai dealership near you, where do you see the car sales going in the next? I think the next, I guess, first quarter of next year is probably going to be the biggest indicator of where this car is going to end up. Right now, I think it's nearing its towards its end of its life. You're going to get a lot of influx of inventory for those that did lease or purchase a vehicle. The general spend for the if you average, I guess, like just commuting day to day, of course it can vary. When you get that $15,000 fuel card with your purchase or lease, I mean lease, you're turning it in after probably 3 years. If you're purchasing the vehicle, people that can't stomach that $180 bill for a full tank, you're probably turning it in, or probably going to turn it in anywhere from roughly 2.75 years to probably 3.5. That's probably when you'll start seeing people start turning in their Toyota Mirais, even if they're upside down, might move it over to a different loan. So with that being said, I'm really curious how these numbers are going to work. I'm wondering how Toyota is going to deal with the probably a larger number of vehicles coming into their dealerships to be sold as pre-owned or just not take them whatsoever. So I'm really curious how that's going to impact resale value as well. I know resale values are pretty. I mean, I think everyone knows at this point are not that great. I just got a comment from a user or a subscriber that turned in their pre-owned Mirai that they bought. I think they bought it for, I think it was like $14,000, something like that, 3 years ago. Now they traded it in and they received 3,000. I don't know if that's the most they could have gotten, but yeah. So that was interesting. From what I understand, my vehicle is probably going to be worth around the ballpark of $8,000 to $9,000. Most likely, it's a 2022 Toyota Mirai XLE. Purchased it in 2022. But yeah. So Tim asked, so no one paid cash for this car. You could have. I mean, of course you can, but I think it's incredibly foolish with a 0% interest. If your credit's good, 0% interest, zero down, especially in this highly volatile market. I think I'm not a finance person, but I would imagine you probably could have put your money elsewhere instead of sinking it into a car and have it do something for you, especially with essentially more or less free money, zero interest. Learning Fast says, honestly, with the huge discount and the $15,000 fuel card, it can be a cheap car for local travel. You really need to sell it before the card runs out, though. Yes. I need to do some more math on the depreciation, accounting for depreciation, insurance, registration. All those things are factors. For those of you that don't live in, I would say, if you live in an area that is, how do I say this, middle class or lower, then your insurance is probably going to be pretty high. I say that from personal experience. Not trying to discriminate by any means, but just the reality of how insurance works. If you live in a nicer area, your insurance rates are going to be lower. Like, for example, in my previous place, the Toyota Mirai, same policy, was $190 per month. Same policy, same everything. And then I moved over to a different area and same everything, same company, was $90 a month. So it's a pretty big factor. And also, registration is about $700 a year. I just saw from another subscriber that it's about theirs was 900 something, which is pretty interesting, but quite a bit of money. And then learning fast, you said if they are giving you 0% financing, there's no reason to pay. Yep, exactly. Um, Tim says, I live in Tennessee. Interesting. Okay. Never, I assume that's what you mean, Tennessee. I don't think they sell Mirais out there, or am I misreading that? Let me know. Thank you all for joining. Just want to talk about the sales numbers for the Toyota Mirai. With that being said, if you do own a Mirai, put in the chat what you plan on doing with it. I'm really curious what everyone just is thinking about. Are you thinking about selling it and getting into a new one, or are you getting into or a used one perhaps? Or if you're going back to kind of the combustion engine, what are you looking at? And then Learning Fast says my Tesla insurance is stupid in Maryland, almost 400 a month. It was 90 a month in North Carolina. Yeah, that's quite a bit. I wonder to do with the time it takes to repair Teslas. I know some of the parts. I don't know exactly what goes on, but I know the time it takes to get parts and get repairs done is pretty bad. Let's see. Jason says, "Do I have an Instagram?" Yes, the Mirai Club. It should be same logo as the Instagram channel. I don't post as often anymore, but I should. Jason Baldwin says, want to sell but don't know what to get. Okay. I assume if you bought a Toyota Mirai, you're looking for something practical. I really think, and I'm not sure exactly what your budget is, but I think some good contenders are, I mean, if you want to stick with Toyota, I mean, you can't go wrong with a Camry hybrid. I think it looks great. Looks futuristic. I think the Priuses look amazing, though it's a very small, much smaller car. If you're looking, the Toyota Crown's an interesting proposition. I think it's a little. I don't think. I think you can get a lot more value for that type of money compared to other brands. So not my first pick, but if you're looking for that kind of luxurious sedan type feel, that can be an option if you want to stick there. And also I just wanted to mention before in the previous live stream, we talked about the Honda, I think the Honda CRV, the fuel cell car, essentially their hydrogen vehicle. The yeah, that they're only leasing right now. I did find out that the Honda, is it not the Prelude? That'd be awesome though. Prologue, I think it's the Prologue. There we go. The new Honda Prologue is a Chevy. If you didn't know, if you're looking at a Honda, you're looking for an EV, it's a Chevy. They partnered with Chevy. It's essentially their, I think it was the Chevy Equinox EV, I believe. Yes. If you look at, I believe it's the Equinox, but Honda partnered with Chevy to create the Honda Prologue. In terms of value proposition, I think it's not great, but I believe the positioning is, from what I've seen and what I've read and what I think, I do agree that this product is primarily just to capture Honda enthusiasts or Honda loyalists, not necessarily attract new buyers with um, an electric vehicle. So anyway, sorry. Learning fast. Did you know that Kia and Hyundai will get Tesla NEC support in January? This will resolve some of the charging problems you encountered when you rented one earlier. I did know I did know that they were going to support NACS charging. I didn't know exactly when, so thank you for those of you that have a Kia. I guess would it go back, or would it be with the older? Ionic or the current Ionic 5s and the Kia EV6s and whatnot, will they be able to charge? I assume not, but I'm really curious how that would work. I wonder how the experience is. I should probably test that out, but that's great. In Japan, the crown is the new Mirai. That is actually not exactly true. The Mirai is still there. The crown is still there. The crown is deep within Toyota's heritage. And I think the yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of looks and prestige, maybe, but the I could definitely tell you I was in Japan last year, and the Mirai and the Crown live side by side, just like they do in the U.S. The CRV plug-in hydrogen. Tim says the CRV is a plug-in hydrogen vehicle, which is better. It is better, but I think without looking up the stats, I believe EV charging only goes was it like 90 some or it was a really short distance, I forgot, but yes, that is a plus though if you want to have that option. Learning fast, it is a decent vehicle even through Chevy's design. Yes, he's referring, for those of you that just tuned in, he's referring to the Honda Prologue. The Honda Prologue is built um, essentially on the Chevy Equinox platform. It might be good, but American quality has a reputation, and yeah, I do have an American car too, so it's not. I'm just hating on American cars, but I think American trucks have their own category, and everything else American is not great, in my opinion. I've been pretty pleased with the recent products from other American brands, but generally speaking, yeah, the Chevy Bolt, for example, has plenty of issues that I think are silly in my mind for that price, which is affordable, but still, I'd rather just get a Tesla and deal with the small or deal with the quality control issues, like the panel gaps and whatnot. Um, they will offer an adapter in February for older Kia and Hyundai cars. For those of you that do have Kia and Hyundai cars, Learning Fast has shared that starting January, Hyundai and Kias will get Tesla NECS chargers. Yeah, and it's 29 miles if you plug in the CRV, which is it's not bad. I'll take it. 29. Do you think fuel cells are going to last? That's a loaded question, Leo. Um, as of now, I think there's been too much money pumped into this from governments, from private companies for it to fail, I think. And of course, I'm just strictly talking primarily about the consumer side. The commercial side is a different story. Um, I think there's too much money into it for companies and governments alike to scrap it as a loss at this point. With that being said, I do think one of the biggest hurdles that need to be overcome, as everyone's probably knows, is the infrastructure. And especially with the lawsuit between Nell and Iwatani, I think that's a really, really big thorn on the side of one for the movement, if you will, or the space, and also um, yeah, just availability for the end consumer, which is us, the Mirai owners or Nexo owners. A lot of the Iwatani stations are still down, and if they're up, they're probably going to be down very soon, and then back up again. So, do I think it's going to last? Yes, I do think so. I think they'll find their own applications where it makes sense, but I think there's too much money into it right now, and I still think it's still relatively the industry still adapting to what might come next. I think the EVs are the most predictable direction, but with that being said, I do think given the kind of drop off in EV adoption, I do think the industry is recalibrating or rethinking what other process or what other products they can put into the market. That's my opinion. All right, so Black Villain. Pretty much all Hyundai or Kia Hyundai cars are 800 volts, so they charge quite slowly on the supercharger network since it is only output 400 volts as of today. Well, I don't know the stats on that. You probably know more than I do, but I will say from personal experience, I drove a Hyundai Ioniq 5 think a base one, from LA to Vegas, and I stopped by Supercharge America in Barstow. Was it Barstow? Was it Baker? Baker. I think it was Baker. And it went from essentially like 5% to 80% in 10 minutes. And if that is still 400 volts, seems usable to me. I don't know the stats on that, but I thought that was very appropriate and usable. But with that being said, I know the Baker station, the Electrify America station, is an anomaly, one of the highest charging or fastest charging stations. But in a best case scenario, I really enjoyed that experience. Tim says, I sent a DM to your Instagram from my business page. Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. I'll take a look at that, Tim, after this. MMD Dom, the used Teslas are a giant bargain now. Yes. I think used EVs in general, but especially Teslas, with the price decreases, just market right now, I think it's a great bargain. I've really been tempted to get into an EV, especially a Tesla with these used prices. I just don't know what I would have to do, if there was an issue. That kind of freaks me out. This kind of the unknown. That's kind of what makes me hesitate from buying a non-certified pre-owned hydrogen vehicle. So that's kind of where I'm at. But thank you for the suggestion. Uh, Black villain. Okay, there we go. Learning fast. I lost over 10K selling my last Tesla, so the Mirai is not the only car with a huge depreciation. If the Mirai was only 10K depreciation, that would be awesome. Because compared to your 10K depreciation, I'm looking at right now, or probably most of us that do have a Mirai or bought one, you're looking at around $40,000 in depreciation in 3 years, give or take. Granted, if you that sounds terrible, and it is, but the incentives have a huge part to play in the price of a car, especially in the used market. So I think some math needs to take place for it to be a little bit more sound number. Because if you add incentives to any vehicle, the used prices usually drop quite a bit. So depending on how much you put into the incentive structure. Um, what is the most reliable EV in your opinion? Learning Fast could probably answer that. But in my opinion, from what I've heard, I don't know. I don't think I have a strong or an informed opinion to share with y'all in confidence. Um, but I would imagine, yeah, I'm not sure to be honest. I can't say with confidence. I want to say Teslas, but I don't know. I've heard horror stories too. So sorry, I can't give you a response in confidence with that. Or just say I don't know. If any of you have any suggestions for Leo or any thoughts on what the most reliable EV is, please put it in the chat. Black Villain says the Kia Hyundai EV charge quite fast in general, but slow on the supercharger network specifically. Got it. Um, yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So on the supercharger network, it's slow. Does that mean like Tesla sandbagging it, or what's going on? Curious on that front. I need to get more versed in EVs. I just used one for a bit. It's probably the extent of my EV knowledge, really. Got it. Okay. Learning Fast, 130 kilowatts. I know Learning Fast has a plenty of knowledge in the EV space, so he has plenty of knowledge to share. Check in the chat. He's commented on plenty of videos, and as far as I could tell, he knows his stuff, or she, or whoever you are. Learning Fast, you know who you are. Would it be a 40K loss with current incentives? Technically, no. See, yeah, that's why it's on the surface, it's 40K, but you're right. The incentives, the one I got was 17,000 off. I think it's above that now, and with a state rebate of 4,500 bucks. So pretty much 20 or so. So, but still, it's about 20, oh, just shy of 20 thousand dollars in depreciation, roughly. Reliable in what manner? Creaks and rattles. I would guess, learning fast that Black Villain is thinking about just like the mechanics or getting from point A to point B. I'm guessing, but who knows? Tesla does. Learning fast says Tesla does 400 volts, but the Kia wants 800. Got it. So sandbagging it, kind of, or not sandbagging it, just can't meet up with the capabilities of the Kia cars. All Tesla cars outside of the Cybertruck are 400 volts. Okay, this is getting to an EV discussion that I am not equipped to handle, but y'all keep typing away. Leo says, I want a Tesla, but from what I've seen on YouTube, the build quality is a nightmare and charging times are long. That's the only thing stopping me. Yeah, I mean, I will say the little bells and whistles on Teslas when you are charging are nice. The Netflix, the little games, the spacious interior. I think it's makes it reasonable. And just like owning a hydrogen car, I think you really have to plan out your charges. I would imagine. And if you're obviously at home, you can home charge. I think a big speaking of charging at home, I think a common I guess a big part of the Toyota Mirai ownership, if I can speak for a lot of the other owners out there, if you're shopping for a Toyota Mirai, I find that you're either in one camp, you have multiple vehicles, and this is just one of them, and you don't rely on it necessarily need to rely on it day to day. And on the flip side, you're also some people are shopping for Toyota Corollas, and the interest rates were really high, and markups on used vehicles were way too high. And you've heard from a friend that you can get into a $53,000 car with heavy incentives, new technology, and it looks great. So I'm speaking to the camp where you essentially punched up in owning the Toyota Mirai. If there were no incentives, you're likely not shopping for a car, a 53 plus $1,000 car. I think a big part of the ownership process, especially when people say get out of the Mirai and buy an EV, I think a lot of the I'm taking a guess here, but I would a majority or a lot of the yeah, I would say a majority of the Toyota Mirai owners may not be homeowners or have an ability to charge at home, and I think that's a big um, X factor when it comes to considering a or like swapping to an EV for a lot of Mirai owners. That's just my hunch, and that's yeah, that's from people I've talked to that have Mirais. That does seem to be a pretty big barrier. So take that for what you will. Learning fast. All right, there's some good EV chats going on in the chat. So if you're curious on that, check that out. MMD Dom says if you can charge at home and do not take long trips often, EV is the way to go. Totally agree. Um, I think yeah. Even if you're looking for if you don't take long trips, I would heavily consider like those smaller EVs, even like the ID4, Nissan Leaf. I've been around for a while, but those types of vehicles that don't have the greatest range. But if you're not going out often, I think it's perfect. Yes, software developer says, reading some of the comments on your other videos today, it seems like hydrogen prices in non-US countries are much lower than $36 per kilogram. That you are seeing, or that you're seeing, any ideas why this would be? So, software developer, I don't know the exact answer to that. However, I do have some. I think I've heard from. I think it was Learning Fast or someone else. And all actually someone on the ground. So I went to France right before the Olympics. I was in Paris, saw a lot of Mirais, the electric blue, or was it? I forgot if it's electric. The blue one with the turbine wheels were taxis. So the ones, I guess the trim and color that I really really like. But anyway, beside the point. Yeah, hydrogen costs are much lower over there. And I was talking to a taxi driver, and he had mentioned total fill up was in dollars was roughly around $60 or so, give or take. So significantly lower. From my understanding, talking to some locals there, their thoughts are it's heavily, heavily subsidized by the government, and that's pretty much why. Are they more efficient at producing hydrogen? I'm not sure, but everyone kept pointing to the subsidies and the government programs to support the hydrogen infrastructure. So, yeah, so that seems to be the reason why. And in Japan as well, it does seem to be cheaper. So hopefully that answers at least some of your questions, or at least entices you to dig deeper. Software developer, learning fast is sharing some EV knowledge per usual. Speaking of range, right now I'm still getting roughly 360 miles per full tank with no AC on, and about 330 with AC. Um, yeah, so it's gone up generally. But when I first got the car, I was averaging about 290, give or take, with AC, and 310 without AC. Leo says, thanks for the replies. No problem. I wish I had a house. I'm in an apartment. Can someone really on it? That's a great question, Leo. I know, I'm sure Learning Fast or someone else, Black Villain, could probably share with you, but um, from my understanding and of, I have two friends that have or an EV, and they live in apartments where they cannot charge, or likely, cannot charge at their place. Um, they go out of their way to go to charging stations with the intent of staying there for a while. So I don't know if you can sacrifice that in your day. They don't have kids yet, so that should probably helps. But they seem to be adapting just fine. I guess similar to probably how Toyota Mirai owners and Hyundai Nexa owners have adapted to just expect lines and hiccups. So I don't know. Probably doesn't answer your question directly. If anyone has experience with having an EV not having the ability to charge at home, please share. And yes, so the most miles I've done, Learning Fast asks, what is the most amount of miles you have done between fill ups in the Mirai? The most miles I've clocked were, I think it was 330 some miles total. And that's, I was really trying to hyper mile. Oh yeah. And I'm also on eco mode all the time. I essentially never leave eco mode. I don't really feel a difference on normal and sport. I do, but like the car's already really slow, so it doesn't really feel a big difference to me. So I'm in eco mode, about 330, give or take, and I was really hypermiling. Most of the time, I'm in the 310s, 320s. So generally speaking, around that range is what I'm getting with my Toyota Mirai. Do you think Leo asks, do you think hydrogen needs another Elon Musk to increase investment? I'm without getting political. Um, yeah, I think we do need more investment into it. I think the investment needs to come first, and then consumers need to support that investment with their wallets by purchasing products. I think right now, the current way of things, it sounds like we're trying to keep the consumers are keeping the at least consumer grade hydrogen online support right now, and yeah, we'll see. I think we do need a lot more investment for it to be somewhat feasible and usable for consumers. Because right now, yeah, I just don't know the play. Yeah, it doesn't look too good right now. Black Villain says Musk Tesla made EV catch up. Okay, so I imagine it's gonna be a hell of a lot cheaper to build a charging station versus a hydrogen station. If anyone knows that, actually, let me know. But I would imagine um, people or companies that were considering buying or building hydrogen stations are definitely not anymore, especially with this Nell Iwatani fiasco. And I don't think there's enough investment into the development of these stations. Are they the most efficient? I've seen some stories where the price, the metering is not correct, is not accurate, or not accurate enough for consumers. So there's that one thing too. But yeah, I will say one thing. It's very anecdotal, and take it for what you will. But the Toyota Mirai marketing investment, I've noticed, at least from the website, has gone down. What I mean by that is, if you look at the current Toyota deals and incentives site or the page, all the Toyota Mirais are that blue with the limited wheels. And historically, at least up until this point, I've noticed they try to mix in XLE, limited. Now all the XLEs have limited wheels. Now all of them have this blue color, and I think they're trying to reduce the cost of keeping marketing material up. And it does seem to be consistent with the Mirai support line, which is seems to be dwindling as well. So I think Toyota's starting to cut costs quite a bit with Mirai related things. Then the Tesla chat continues in the chat. Feel free to engage there if you have any questions there. That might be a good topic for later. If any of you all would be interested in like co-hosting or hosting a discussion, I'm open to ideas, but shoot your idea over. I'm gonna try to figure out this live portion and maybe kind of we can maybe introduce subscribers into the chat. I'm not exactly sure how that works yet, but I will look into it. But yes, I think something exciting. If those of you that haven't seen it yet, the Volkswagen ID bus is out and about in the US. I just saw one yesterday. Really cool. I saw one in Europe as well before it came to the States. I think it looks really cool. Is it practical? Up to you to decide, but I think it looks really awesome, and I love that bus look. Not exactly my cup of tea, but I think it looks really awesome. Leo says, "Do you think Toyota is getting less reliable? They've been having issues lately. I know about some of these issues. Are probably the main one around their larger SUVs and trucks. So, for those of you that don't know, Toyota has been battling some production quality issues, not just about panels and whatnot, but the actual drivetrain or the combustion engine. That is, this is the typically, or this is the motor in the new Tundra, in the Lexus GX, and in the new some of the new Land Cruisers. But essentially, what had happened, was during the manufacturing process on the block, some of the shavings from milling the block were left, and essentially causes a catastrophic failure. And someone would say, yeah, the engine just needs to be replaced or it just stops working. That's pretty much what happens. You add foreign materials in there, like shavings of aluminum or whatnot, and it just totally implodes the engine. They had a lot of issues. Apparently, they fixed them, but it's quite a big problem. There's been a massive recall. So if you have any of those vehicles, yes, and the Tacoma as well. I know the Tacoma had issues as well. So not a great time for larger vehicles for Toyota. Yeah, so I mean, the conversation continues in the chat around EVs. I just wanted to mention or just share or say thank you all for the support in this channel. I'm still trying to figure out how to evolve this past Mirai ownership. I still have the Mirai, but at this point, I'm probably not going to keep it. So after the fuel card runs out, which is probably going to be in the next couple months, I will probably be departing from the Mirai. I am still considering many things, but most likely the Mirai is going to be gone. So I'll be sure to document that process, kind of what I went through. So let you know. Uh, Rafe Jamal says, "Does the hydrogen car handle similar to the electric car in terms of its responsiveness?" This is the type of stuff I enjoy talking about. Um, Let me caveat by saying I'm not a race car driver or anything. Been to the track a handful of times, and I'd like to think I have some basics down for like car handling, I guess. But I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there that know more than I. But to answer your question, Rafi Jamal, I think the Toyota Mirai handles great for what it is. I think for a large SUV, rear wheel drive, pretty light steering, I would say. I think it's pretty well balanced. The nose dives in pretty aggressively because of the soft suspension. But I think given the horsepower, the lighter horsepower numbers, it makes for a fun driving experience. It gives me a lot of confidence, and in a slide, it feels somewhat controllable. And actually, I take that back. Not exactly. I think it's the traction control is very pulsy. I think that's a good way to put it. If once you put it in a slide, it just wants to. You kind of the computer just does whatever it wants to do, so it's not very predictable. Don't ask me how I know that, but I think it handles great. The acceleration is pretty bad. It's a slow car, and the responsiveness, the throttle response is bad. But the turning, braking, all feels pretty fun for the road. Definitely wanted to take it on the track. I wanted to bring it to Big Willow, but I was too worried the hydrogen would run out on the way back. But definitely not buying it. Don't buy it if you want some great handling sedan. I think that's a given, but I think it handles pretty well. It's a pretty fun car. Software developer, Mirai Club would be more qualified to answer that than me. Okay. Says, I'm guessing a hydrogen station can fill up more cars faster than a charging station can. Um, Great question, software developer. I think if you're doing a one-to-one comparison, in theory, yes, a hydrogen station can fill up more cars in a fixed amount of time than a charging station. However, the scalability is a big factor here, and I think in a theoretical setting, a hydrogen station will be more efficient in terms of filling up more cars in that fixed time. But in the real world, I think your chargers are can fill up more. One, you could put more next to each other. You're not restricted to like gas stations or yeah, essentially you can put more pumps in theory. And also in addition to that, hydrogen stations are infamous for freezing nozzles after multiple consecutive fill ups. So there's that as well. So in theory, yes, hydrogen stations can fill up more, but in the real world, probably not sustainable, at least from my experience. No, thank you for the kind words. The channel's been very, very eye opening for me. Just owning the car and getting to just be a little bit more educated on the space. So appreciate that. Leo says you sound disappointed about the Mirai. I know a lot of my videos, I get plenty of crap for just bashing on the car, and it's honestly it's pretty easy to bash. The infrastructure is an easy one, and sure, just say you take that out of the equation. It's an expensive car for most people. Yes, you get the incentives and whatnot, but if you're just taking the sticker price, which some would argue is not very fair, it's a great car. The only it's just not very practical in my mind. Here's the logic. If you've watched my videos, heard me rant about this all the time. The back seats are really, really tight. I think a Toyota Corolla has more backseat room than a Toyota Mirai. It's incredibly the angle of how you get into the back seat's really tough. You kind of have to fall into it. I'm 6'2", and every time I sit in the back, I'm hunched over. I might as well. I had a E46 M3 before. I think my back seats of that car were much, much more roomy. The seats don't fold down, so you can't put anything in the trunk. And with that being said, the trunk is pretty tiny. Forgot the exact measurements and size capacity, the capacity of it, but it's not very good. Gets used two set of golf. I know golf clubs are used very often, so I'm going to use that. It fits two set of golf clubs very well. If you're using three skinny golf clubs sets, golf bag sets, you can fit that in, but it's a snug fit. If you're talking Costco water, um, was it 36 bottle water packs? You can fit like eight, no, six, and that's a squeeze and nothing else really. It's not very practical. And obviously the range, it's range for the mileage or how much you spend, excuse me, on hydrogen, it's not good. So with that being said, I think it's a beautiful vehicle. I think it drives great, and materials, generally speaking, feels like a pseudo Lexus. So yeah, outside of that, I would say I think I mentioned this before. If you're getting a Mirai, either be single, married with no kids, or retired. If you have kids, forget it. I would highly, highly suggest you look elsewhere. The door openings on the rear are not, they don't open wide enough. And even if they did, again, it's kind of the seats are recessed into the back. You can't access the trunk because you can't fold the seats down. So, again, my recommendations if you have the Mirai or want a Mirai, it's single, married with no kids, or retired. If you're starting a family or you go out and do activities often, don't get it. It's not worth it in my mind. Even if hydrogen was extremely affordable, it's just not worth it. So, anyway, Learning Fast says crazy that 200 horsepower Mirai is actually about 200 pounds heavier than my Model 3 performance. Yes, it's slow car. Um, let's see, Model 3. One thing I will say about Tesla Model 3s, the ones I've driven and the Model Ys, the suspension is not as plush. So if that's important to you, um, they tend to be a little firmer, in my opinion. No problem. Rafe Jamal, no problem. Learning fast is the EV check continues. Oh yeah. Leo said, dude, your most viewed video destroyed me. Everyone was bashing fuel cells. Yeah, it was actually really funny. I find it very funny when I see the comments about like my 1987 Ford pickup gets better fuel economy than this thing. And I mean, that technically is true, but also I think just from a buyer perspective, I don't think you're exactly a buyer of a Toyota Mirai or a Hyundai Nexo or when the Honda Insights were out there. I don't think that's a fair comparison, but fair criticism. Let's if you want to, I don't think that's your target audience, Toyota, but interesting. Learning fast. Have you ever seen how small the hydrogen CRV trunk is? Way smaller than the normal CRV. Yes, I haven't seen it, but I would imagine you could probably fold the seats down. The Hyundai Nexo packaging is very nice. It's very on par with the Hyundai Santa Fe, I thought, or the Tucson that is. So it seems very usable. I've seen them plenty of times at the station, and just from the back seats, everything, the packaging, it's much easier to package the hydrogen fuel cell in a SUV. But with that being said, it just seems way more practical than the Toyota Mirai. Then let's see, it looks like nice for sure. Learning Fast says, could you do a video showing what it would be like to put a car seat in the Mirai? Yeah, actually. Um, I don't have a car seat, but I have plenty of friends that do. And I think that would be a great video, actually. I always talk about it, but I think having an actual parent try it would be really interesting. So thank you for that idea. Leo asks, "Are you going to trade in the Mirai?" Definitely selling it. Trade in really depends on what the deal is for the other car, but most likely I will probably sell the car. Probably no trade in. I was considering the BZ4X. I think the car is pretty hideous, but I think it'd be a fun asset to the channel. So yeah, and the range sucks. So there you go. 252 miles of range. And I would imagine in real world situations, that's probably 230, which is pretty horrendous for especially for that price. Um, Next, Highland Model 3, adaptive dampers. Got it. Talking about dampers. Got it. All right. So, okay, learning fast says don't do the BZ4X. It charges incredibly slow. Okay. It's one thing I really didn't look into, but even more reason not to get one. And it retails for 43 base, which is a lot. I was debating doing a farewell video, Leo. I think I will. Um, Maybe I'll do a trip to the Bay and then come back down to Southern California, something like that. Pay homage to the experience and salute those that will keep on keeping on with the Toyota Mirai. I'm still waiting for Toyota to reach out to me and then tell me to test out some of their other stuff, but I'm pretty sure I'm on their naughty list because I've kind of been a little bit too candid with my videos, I think. Probably not too happy with me, but it is what it is. I didn't create the channel with malicious intent, but I felt when I purchased the vehicle, there wasn't enough long-term videos out there about the ownership process or the experience. So I felt compelled to create this. I think when you live with a Toyota Mirai or Hyundai Nexo or any hydrogen vehicle for that matter, I don't think it represents the data. You can't get a feel of what it's like to really live with one um, when you're a journalist, especially with this car. And I understand they have plenty of other interesting cars they would want to review, but yeah, doing like keeping the Mirai for a week is just not long enough. There's so many little things that need to be picked up, and considering the space is so new and the car is so new, I felt like I had to share my experience. Just so if people are really considering it and these incentives are very enticing, they have an idea of what they're getting into versus just the marketing material. Uh, Black Villain says BZ4X before the 2020 or the 25 model year locked you to best road 24 weekend road trip ability. What's your max price for the next vehicle? Really depends. But I would say I want to keep it under. We'll see. I always blow through my budget, or not blow through. I always increase what I want to spend, but I would prefer to spend 50 or less. It really depends on the vehicle. For example, right now in the running, which is probably seen as completely out of left field, considering the channel, is a TTRS, the last previous generation, one of my wife's favorite cars. So for that, yeah, I might go up just because it has that enthusiast car factor. And if you look at potential residuals, it could be okay. But if I was to get, for example, like a commuter car, a like kind of point A to point B, what would my budget would not be 50,000. I would probably put the budget at like 30 or less. Um, so yes, I don't mind spending more money on like a fun car that probably is fun and also probably won't lose too much value. So maybe like a 997 Carrera S, something like that, maybe. I don't mind. I'm not trying to make money on my cars, but if you can lose the least amount, that's ideal. But if it's just point A to point B, um, something cheap. Leo says, "Have you have you seen the Lamborghini?" No, I have, but it's good. I will say I've been very privileged to be in a lot of Lamborghini products. Just not me owning them, but um, yeah, that would be a dream. So yes, healthy budget. Lightly used Porsche Taycan. No, thank you. I think EV Porsches, the Audi e-trons, all those luxury EV models are gonna take a massive dump in price, and they're not that enticing to me. I did drive a Porsche Taycan Turbo S. It's great. It's very capable, but it doesn't do anything for me. I kind of like the motor if I'm going to do that route. But I will say I really like the Audi e-tron look better than the Porsche Taycan. It's a little bit more cartoonish. And I know this is kind of a wild card, but I did consider the BMW i8, the older one, the hybrid, three cylinder hybrid. Not very quick, but I think it looks fun. And without breaking the bank, you can be fuel efficient and you can look kind of ridiculous. So it looks kind of fun, cartoonish car. Have you considered leasing? Yes, I have. I was actually just looking at there was a deal that came through a Chevy Equinox EV. It was zero down, 3 years. I think it was 10,000 miles a year for 220 a month, which is crazy. So I was considering that. I am open to leasing, but it would have to be a pretty compelling offer to me. And that is definitely a compelling one. Raid 1994 said, I finally purchased a 2022 Mirai Limited for 16.2K out the door at Longo, Toyota in Hydro Blue last Wednesday. Congratulations, that's the best color. Immediately took it on a trip to San Jose on Thursday and came back Sunday. Wow, that's great. Good for you. Let's do some quick math here. So let's say I assume you're in SoCal, Raid, but let's say from Los Angeles to San Jose is roughly 372 miles. Obviously, you're probably going to dinner, see friends, whatever. But let's just say 372 times 2, and then I know the Toyota Mirai costs roughly 50, no, 53 cents a mile, give or take. So you spent, if you were to go from Los Angeles to San Jose and back and do nothing else, you would spend roughly almost $400 in fuel costs. So quite a bit. I hope you enjoy the car. But yeah, I think that's a great color. I hope you got the turbine wheels too. Awesome pick. And Black Miller says, I wonder how the i8 have been aging mechanically. I mean, as of now, it seems, yeah, it's a 3-cylinder motor. I think it's the same motor that they use in the base minis now. I'm not entirely sure, but it's still a BMW, and I would, question the longevity of it. So, yes, there are some crazy lease deals. For those of you looking, there are some incredible lease deals this holiday season and in general. So, and I think they'll keep on keeping on given the inventory levels, in my opinion. Leo says, no, dude, not a Chevy. If it's a lease and I don't need to worry about the quality, it could be any brand. If it's a buying situation, a little bit different. Oh, I did consider the Nissan, is it the Aria, the EV? That one's interesting, kind of. Sounds about right. I'm pretty sure you do get a fuel card with a certified pre-owned. It sounds like you did, Raid. Awesome. So everyone, Raid in the comment section in the chat took a trip from El Monte to San Jose and back with his Toyota Mirai 2022. And yes, for sure, Nissan is definitely struggling. I will say I took a look at the new, was it the Infinity, the largest SUV? It looks pretty good. But the grill is still humongous, like every other brand. But they're very much in dire shape, that's for sure. Very cool. So everyone's really loving the EVs in here, unsurprisingly. But for those of you that have a Toyota Mirai or a Hyundai Nexo owner, if you are in the chat or if you're in the group, please share your experience with the car. Really curious. Everyone I've spoken to with the Hyundai Nexo seems to greatly appreciate that car much more than Mirai owners. Leo asks, what do you think of German cars? I think German cars are great. I think generally speaking, German engineering is fantastic. It just won't last very long. or it takes a lot of it's high maintenance. But I think the ingenuity. I'm a little history about myself. One of my dream jobs was to go work in at BMW in Germany, but it didn't happen. All good. But I obviously have a soft spot for BMW and German cars in general. I think they're engineered extremely well, but complicated and difficult to work on. I don't know about their EVs, but oh, I do know anecdotally when the i3 came out, I had a buddy of mine who was a master tech at BMW for I think it was like 15 plus years. Um, if you are considering a BMW i3, the subframe bushings and the chassis bushings go bad, and to do that job, you got to lift the entire. It's a lot of work. It's a cheap part, a lot of work. So if you're considering that, just check out those bushings. Very nice. Got the turbine wheels. Congratulations. And yes, it was the QX80. Yep. Awesome. So, all right, I'm gonna probably sign off for today, but thank you all for joining in again, hearing me just rant. If you have any ideas on how I should structure these live streams, I'll look into how I can possibly bring people in to the video chat live. I don't know if that's possible, but if you have any ideas, let me know. Any topics you want to discuss or you want me to look into, I'll do my best to at least facilitate it and get myself a little bit more educated on those topics. Um, but yeah, let the conversations continue. Be on the lookout for some crazy holiday deals. They're out there. And yeah, thank you for the support. I hope you found this helpful, or if it's not helpful, entertaining at least. But appreciate it. Have a great evening or morning wherever you are. See ya.